that transition was really, really hard for me because as a student, you're not prepared to enter the job market. Mentally, it's really hard to discover that you're not protected, you're not in a cocoon anymore. And you discover that nobody's waiting for you. There is no doors that's going to be open for you. So that moment, it was really a lesson of humility for me. And it forced me to be really resilient and to say, okay, I have to start here. Doesn't matter because I have to make a living. How can you use that experience to leverage the next one?
Welcome to or welcome back to Fashion Career Stories. My name is Lucas SILVA EDWARDS. I am a career strategist and executive coach. My role is to help you design a successful life and career in one of the most glamorous industries on the planet, but also one of the most competitive. With more than 10 years of experience in the fashion and luxury industry here in Paris, France, and thanks to my large diversity of experience from retail, wholesale, product development, or fashion editor, I have acquired an insider view of what it takes to succeed in groups like LVMH, Kering, or Chanel, but also in fashion tech startup or small designer brands. For that reason, I interview each week fashion professionals at different stages of their career in order to decode their best practices, tactics, and strategies. However, this week I have decided to experiment with the format and be on the other side of the mic. To help me, I have invited Lala Drona to interview me and ask me any question that she believes are most relevant for all of you. I have no idea what the questions are and where this conversation is going to go. Now, you probably wonder who is Lala Drona. Lala is a Venezuelan-American painter and video artist born in Denver, Colorado. After receiving a Bachelor of Art, Lala Drona has since published and exhibited her work internationally. Her videos and paintings exploring digital spaces and the female gaze were shown at the Cité des Arts in Paris. Her work explored the monstrous feminine, alternate realities, and the void of the digital world. The totality of her work contributes and exists within a fictional universe and mythology established online at www.basedonthefact.com, and then recontextualized in the physical world through paint, canvas, performances, and sculpture. And she's based in Paris, France. You can discover her work on her Instagram at Lala Drona Official. What makes this episode so special is that Lala Drona is also my better half, and she has been sharing my life for the past 12 years. She has been my rock and my partner in crime in all my projects, and I don't see a better person to interview. And with no further ado, please enjoy this wide-ranging conversation with Lala and Lucas. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. This is the most efficient way to help us grow and entice people to listen to the show. Don't be shy, hit those 5 stars and show us your love in the comment section.
Hi everyone, I'm Lala Drona. I'm a painter and a video artist living in Paris, France, and I'm here interviewing Lucas Silva from the podcast Fashion Career Stories. I've known Lucas for 12 years, and I met him in Rio de Janeiro while we were both studying abroad there during our university days. And since then, I've had the pleasure of witnessing his personal and professional growth over the years. If I must say, I am the one who knows Lucas the best. So let's see how this interview goes today. Let's have fun. All right.
Thank you very much, Lala. It's so cool to have you. I love your introduction because before we start, let's say it's true that you know me the best, and you have been near to me in this project since day one, since the beginning. So I'm really, really happy to explore this episode and see where it's going.
Yeah, it should be fun. It's a fun little experiment. Let's see how things go. So, so starting out, I was wondering if you could just, for everyone that's listening, if you could just introduce yourself, tell everyone a little bit about you, where you're from, what you do.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Lucas. I'm French-born, from Colombian parents. I've been here in Paris my entire life. And let's say how to introduce myself. One of the things that I like to always say that creativity has been kind of a red thread all along my life, especially because my family, my father, uncle, mother, they all like in some way are really creative. So it's been something near to my heart for a long time. And that's why I decided to work in the fashion industry. I've studied at the Institut Français de la Mode. I've done internships and work experience as a product development in leather goods and shoes at Lanvin, at Dior. Also, I had like some retail experience at Fendi, but I also work in so many different areas of the, let's say, fashion and luxury, because I worked at Orient Express, the luxury train, and I helped develop that project. And lately, for maybe almost 5 years, I was the menswear fashion editor at Le Bon Marché, when I was in charge of helping the buying team select, let's say, the best brands for our assortment to really create what would be the best assortment for men's customers. And at that moment, I had the chance to be at the heart of the fashion industry, going to fashion weeks, meeting designers, looking for the new and upcoming brands, traveling, let's say around the world, like New York, Milan, London. Even I had the chance to go to Taiwan to look for all those little brands. And so let's say that I have an extensive experience in the industry. And today, I'm a coach. I'm a career coach, and I work part-time at the Institut Français de la Mode, where now I coach the students to help them get into this industry and give them all like the strategies, tactics that I have acquired along the years, and learn from others as well, to be sure that they enter and create let's say the career strategy and become successful in this industry.
Wow, that's a very impressive career trajectory and story. I say that, I mean, obviously you can hear from my accent, I'm not from France, I'm from Colorado, and coming from Colorado, hearing Paris, New York, Milan, that's incredible from that point of view. And I want to get more into that. But first, I want to go back to what you said earlier. You were talking about being Colombian and French. You mentioned a little bit about your parents. I was wondering, could you tell us a little bit more about your parents, their story?
Yeah, for sure. So if we go back to the family and the parents, we have to mention first my uncle. Because my uncle, he's the trailblazer for the family. He arrived here in Europe around 25 with, let's say, 100 francs or dollars at the time. He arrived to Switzerland, and then he arrived to Paris. And from there, my parents came a few years later. So I was born here, and then for reason of life, they split up, and my dad went back to Colombia. My mom stayed here, and again, my dad come back. So it was a let's say a mix between being in France, being in Colombia, and what it's really important for me because of that, it's the fact that my uncle and my mom and dad, they decided to really come here to Europe for different reasons. My dad was really for learning about creativity because he's a painter. He wanted to study the art, study the masters, study the techniques, things like that. And so he gave me all that mindset about like what is mastery, what are the beauty, how to look for details in the different, let's say, art forms, even in the clothes and things like that. And my mom, she decided to stay even after they separated, to give me a better education. So different reasons, but both of them transmitted me, like provided me with things that are really, really important to me today. And so, as I was saying, my mom really to give me like a better education. She wanted to become a designer, so the fashion side also come from her. And the education is so important for me that's why I decided to study until the master degree. And that's why I think today as well, I like helping students become who they want to be, because I know education it's so important. So yeah, the uncle, the trailblazer, my mom, the education, and my dad, the creativity and the art. That's kind of what makes me to today.
Wow, that's a great trio, and the fact that they came from another country, do you think that that has changed the way that you lived your life? You've lived your life, or maybe has had some sort of effect on you as well, growing up in France?
Yeah, definitely. I think like as any person who is the first generation of immigrant, you're always like in the hyphen in between, and for that side, you never really feel totally French. You never feel totally Colombian. The classic is like you go to Colombia and you are French, and when you are in France, you are more Colombian in some way. That's the perception that people give you. And but for me, it's always been something super interesting, because here in France, being Colombian, it's almost being exotic. It's always different. You don't meet so many Colombians, at least during my time. So you always a little bit different. So it was I like that, and I guess that's why also, like, in terms of clothing, in terms of style, you always have that will to kind of be a little bit different. It's part of me. And at the same time, it brings some type of imposter syndrome, let's say, because being in France, you always have that let's say hierarchy of class in some way. What it's beauty, the type of studies you do. It's there is a lot of let's say things that you need to have done to be accepted by society, especially the more higher you go in the society. So there is always that pressure to go to the right school, to do the right studies, to choose the right type of college and things like that. So it's always been something like hard to say, okay, how do I become French in some way? Okay, I have the nationality, but how I do become French? And I think my answer was to work in fashion, because it was my way to kind of participate to something that I was really interested with, that it represents in some way the French culture, that give a worldwide aura to France. And so that's why that's my way to be French. It's to participate in the fashion industry.
That's so interesting, because you described your uncle as a trailblazer, coming to France with just a few francs and making a life here. But I just think that's incredible that there's this trailblazer in you and also in your uncle, and it's only going, for what you love, like going towards a passion, and that's really what's guiding you. I did think about as well. Because we talked about where you're from and everything. Where did you grow up? What were some of your first homes and things like that, to kind of think about what's inspired you to be the man who you are today?
So I grew up in Paris, in the 11th arrondissement, near to Bastille, for those who knows Paris. And I think what inspired me a lot is the fact that Paris, it's a cosmopolitan city. You have the entire world at your disposal. You meet a lot of people from different countries, different colors, different religions. Everywhere it's here. So you have at a very young age an openness to that. The other thing is Paris, it's well known. We talked about fashion, but for creation, for beauty. So you have the history that it's embedded in the city. Of course, you have all those beautiful monuments in Paris. So you feel history, you feel the weight of French history everywhere. The fact that France always invested a lot in the arts, so a lot of museums, a lot of shows, everything was available for me at a very young age. Even school provides you with a lot of opportunities to discover all of that. So let's say culture has been a backbone for me until today. And regarding fashion, it was also something that, because my mom appreciated, We used to go in the Marais, do some shopping, the Saturdays or things like that, or just walk around. And so you see all the stores, the department stores, even for Christmas, you used to go to those department stores and you see them becoming alive, the trends changing. You see ads and magazines everywhere. So at the end, it's just like you absorb all of that and that's become let's say your norm. So I would say I'm a Parisian product because of that.
That's fantastic. Do you think that Paris has even influenced, let's say, like your move, I guess, to go into fashion? Is that what you're saying?
Definitely, because even let's say when you are in a Parisian school, so you have people in high school, for example, you have people come from all the different backgrounds with different means in terms of money and things like that. And like always, like in a high school and let's say during the teenage years, that's when you try to define a little bit your identity, who you are. And of course, clothing is part of that expression. But by being in Paris, so you see a lot of different style, a lot of different brands, you see different type of groups. So at that moment, you're exposed to a lot of things. So definitely that moment in my life was really important because it's at that moment I was really curious about how people express who they are through the clothes, why we are, let's say, attracted to people who wear certain type of clothes, certain type of brands. What does it say about us, about our means, also about the type of surroundings that we have, what type of groups we belong to. And it was really, really interesting that all of that. So I think because of that curiosity and all the options and all the people I've met in Paris, it created that will to discover the fashion industry from within.
And were you able to have at least some theories to answer some of those questions, like why clothes attract us to certain people, or even why certain groups wear certain clothes and things like that?
At that time, not really, not anything that I remember really specifically. I think it was just like you are attracted to some people, even in movies or things like that. You are attracted by some clothes. Like the memory that I come to mind at that moment, it's really like the movies about gangsters and the Al Pacinos, the De Niros, and all of that. And I always loved the suits. For me, it was like a man has a suit. That's what they wear. So when I was, let's say, younger, I was a kid. Later on, I want to have a suit, a pinstripe suit, and things like that. And for me, it was more like at that time, at the teenagers, it's like you try to become the person you want to be with the means, and so it was interesting for me to see who the different person wants to become. Let's say. So if you're more into hip hop, or if you're a woman, you're more like let's say sexy clothes or tight clothes. What kind of woman do you want to become, or at least experience to become? If you're more like, let's say, more rock, more if you are in some type of music, what do you trying to express? So it was that interested me. It was like, okay, who those person wants to be by wearing those clothes.
That is interesting, because I would say even, of course we still do that today. And it makes me think about even, people online now, we try on avatars and things like that. We try to be different people through online avatars, or fake Instagrams or profiles and all that stuff. And so I guess before all of that, we were just trying on different clothes, different identities, but in real life. But that's very interesting. And so what would you say are topics that introduce you, or what are the topics in fashion that interest you today?
Or today, Today, I'm not so much about the trends per se. Um, I think what I love about fashion is because it's a laboratory, and it's a laboratory that mix all the other arts, everything one in one way or another, gather in the fashion industry, because it's an industry that it's really powerful, that touch everybody, and it's worldwide. Everybody wears clothes, and you have different positioning between, from the fast fashion to the most luxurious brands, to the niche designers, to the more technical brands. So there is a huge diversity of type of brands that interact with artists, musicians, technologies, type of business models, let's say. Um, so fashion for me, yeah, it's a laboratory. So that's, let's say, that's what interests me today. And of course, I say I'm not so interested by the trends per se, but what I'm interested in is about what the designers and the brand are trying to express, because it's, in my opinion, it's a way to kind of take the pulse of the world. Because fashion weeks, it's let's say every 3 or 4 months, if it's men, women, and things like that. So basically, every 3 or 4 months, you're able to see the fashion week all around the world, the different brands, and because the designer, they are inspired by what's happening around them, about their personal history, where they are in the world, where they want to go. You're able to see basically what's happening in the world, what's important, what's resonate with the world, not through media or like a TV show or something, or news, let's say. You see it through the clothes, through the how everything is showcased, the runways, everything. It's like a little show that encapsulate the pulse of the world at that specific moment. And I think that's super, super interesting.
That's really beautiful how you talked about it as, it's a way of getting a pulse on the world and seeing people create from what they're interpreting from what's going on around us or their own experiences. Are there any specific examples that you can think of that you're remembering?
But let's say lately, one of a brand named Coperni, for example, did a big like, let's say, broke the internet, because they used technology to paint a dress directly on a model. But what was really interesting at that moment is because it was a reference about something that Alexander McQueen did before. So it was kind of the same idea. He used a mechanical arm. Then they kind of painted themselves. But what was interesting, it's about the technology. It's about the how the dress change and evolve. In this fashion week, just a few weeks ago, the Japanese brand Enrelage, they did kind of the same. Like, it was a type of not a spray, but something that changed the color of the material by, I'm not sure how is it, but
UV light,
through the UV light or something like that. So there is that idea of change and technology. The most famous one is the Belgian designer Iris van Herpen, that always used 3D materials. So you see, you have that combination of technology, fashion, and entertainment as well. One of my favorite designer, Rick Owens, every time you wonder what's going to be this time. And there is period of his career that he's more extreme than others. But I remember, like, when he used different type of models, he's always really edgy. One of my favorite is when the models were holding each other upside down. So it was really, really unique. You have designers that's going to be really about let's say sustainability, circularity. So you see that more as well. So that's when you see, like, okay, the world is going that direction, and you see the let's say the pulse of the world, that you see it in some of those designers that interested by that. What else? No, I think more or less those are kind of the one I have on the top of my head. Probably also like Virgil Abloh with Off-White, and Louis Vuitton about even social justice. That's a topic that he brought into the fashion industry, especially because he has this aura, and he was really powerful at the time to be able to talk about it and be more socially responsible with his creations. So yeah, I think those are the ones that come into the top of my head.
Well, I can really hear your passion when you talk about it. It's great. And so could you tell me who is your favorite fashion designer? It could be maybe your favorite to wear, and then like your favorite artistically. I'm sure you have several.
So yeah, my let's say the Rick Owens, as I say, it's always been one. I think what I love about it is he has an entire universe. The consistency of his style, it's pretty unique. He's more than 60 years old now, and he's still at top of his game. I love when I see his show, and when I had the opportunity to buy some of his clothes. It's really like I feel I'm transported somewhere else, in a sci-fi movie, or in a place with darkness, like, but at the same time really beautiful. Those lines, the cut of the clothes, the way they move. What it says about you is like it's something really powerful and directional. There is a type of a sense of being a warrior with his clothes. That I love, that transport me when I see the shows. Even when I went with the Bon Marché buy his collection, that was always one of my favorite places, because you discover an entire world, and even the people over there. It's almost like a cult. Even the salesperson, everybody is in Rick Owens, and you feel that you are maybe in some type of concert or cult. So it's really amazing. The other one that always been one of my favorites is the brand OAMC. I have the opportunity to work for them, and what I love about them is like they for me, it's one of the only brands that has been able to mix with success and elegance, the streetwear, let's say the fact that streetwear really really comfortable, that feeling to not feel really loose when you wear something, mixed with the tailoring, the savoir-faire that you have in Europe. So for me, it's a mix between the US and Europe savoir-faire, in terms of shapes. Everything it's a little bit oversized, but not too much. But the materials are amazing. No logo, because at least for me, wearing logo is not something I like at all. So it's a brand that it's really discreet, really elegant, and that has offer a new option for menswear, that it was different than everything that exists at the time. So, and I think it just I discovered it at the right moment in my life to be able to wear it. If I were younger, maybe it was not enough. It doesn't show off enough, and maybe later on, maybe it's not. I will not understand how to use it. So those two are part of my favorite ones, and then you have, let's say, the most accessible brands. For example, a brand like Muji. I love Muji. Again, more minimalist, a lot of basics, basic clothes, really neutral in some way. But it allows, the simplicity of the clothes allow you to mix it with so many things that I love that they provide that. Uniqlo do it always in the same way, but Muji has something better in terms of quality of the clothes, the shapes, the choice of materials are more interesting. The colors are more muted. So yeah, I like that to be able to mix high and low, let's say. So yeah, that's kind of my vestiaire at the moment.
Yeah. So speaking of highs and lows, and I see that you are very knowledgeable in the fashion world, and I was wondering if we could go back a little bit to how you got this knowledge. Can you talk to me a little bit about your studies? What did you study, and some of those highs and lows during those times of study?
I think the study started because I was a kid in Paris. So you always look at, the brands, the stores. You go to the department store, so you see a lot of things. So and you start having those knowledge of what is Dior, what is Chanel, and brands like that. So you have those big names. Who is Yves Saint Laurent? You have exhibition about it, and because my mom loved fashion, or at least she wanted to study fashion, we used to go to those exhibitions early on, or watch movies or documentaries about it on TV. So I think that's where, let's say, the education started. And later on, I was saying, like, when I was a teenager, or starting my years in college, I started buying magazines. So here in France, we used to have a magazine about sneakers called Shoes Up. So I used to read and understand what it's the latest sneakers. So it was way before the big trend of sneakers. But they were super cool interviews about the brands, the collections. It was a big magazine, so you have a lot of things in it. I also started my, let's say, my worldwide education about fashion with Vogue Homme and Vogue Uomo. That was the Vogue edition for men's in France and Italy. And those one at that moment, it was more like Tom Ford and at Gucci, and you have like that masculinity, that Italian vibe, like really like the suits really present. So you start like discovering those what was kind of menswear at that time, and trying to understand who are the brand, who are the designers. So that was part of my education. I was not so much into the blogs and street style. That came a little bit later. But yeah, the basics of the education was that. And later on, of course, it was during the internships. So I did my first internship at L'Oreal in the luxury division. So you have all the different type of brands from the luxury, let's say, industry. So you discover the brands, you try to understand what they are, who they are, what they represent. So you understand who is Ralph Lauren, who is Victor and Rolf, who is Armani, even though you discover them in the magazine, but at that moment you discover them through the lens of perfume business. And you say, okay, that's the way they do that. And then I had the opportunity to go to Lanvin. So to Lanvin, Lanvin, the first haute couture maison here in France, created by another woman. So like, okay, so that's good. That's cool. What does it mean? And who is Albert Elbaz, the designer at that time? And trying to understand how is able like to continue the the history in the design process from that brand to make it more modern and accurate and current, let's say. So you learn by doing, by being surrounded by people. And let's say the moment I learned the most was at the Institut Français de la Mode, because it's a master degree dedicated to the management, luxury and fashion management. And there is really like the place when you learn the most about the industry, about the history of fashion, about sociology of fashion. Of course, all the business. You have the brands that come to over there. So you have the CEOs talking to you about the brands as well. You have designers that come and talk to you about how they arrive there, what fashion represents for them. You have the alumni that come as well, and they're already in a great position, and they tell you, okay, how they did it and what the industry is. So you see, there are different phases, more like the education from the outside world, the practice, and then really like be at the heart of the industry through the IFM and all that all that network it provides.
And what were some of the things that you feel that you took with you from the IFM to today?
Yeah, the number one thing that I always talk about is the language of creation. IFM make me discover that every let's say specialty universe, if you're a designer, if you work in communication, if you're a salesperson, if you're in supply chain or finance, if you're an artist, everybody has a language where they use a language to express what they want, to express their creativity, because in all work you have creativity. And for me, was discovering that the more language you understand and speak, like any language, the better you're going to be to have an overall view of the industry. The better you're going to be to work with other people. You're going to be to navigate way more and learn way more. Because the designer going to talk about a dress in one way, the production department going to talk about it in another way, the finance department going to talk about it in another way, but we all talk about the same dress. A salesperson is going to talk about it differently as well. So it was really interesting. That's the number one thing I always remember. The second thing I think with the IFM, it's the first time that I discover, as I said, that the fashion is the pulse of the world, because you can, again, see fashion from an entertainment point of view, a business point of view, sociological point of view, philosophical point of view, marketing point of view. So everything, it's connected, and all the arts are connected with it, the music, as we say, we talked about the image, the creation, let's say the showmanship that exists in fashion. So that's where I discovered that a 360 view of the industry. And the third thing I would say that I learned from there, it's also something that I say often, is not what you do, is with who you do it. And that's true for every industry, I imagine. But in the fashion industry, because we are in a industry of passionate people, it's really the best jobs you do is the jobs you're able to surround yourself with people who really want to make that project, that really passionate about it. And sometimes the work doesn't really matter. What you want is to be surrounded from that energy. And that's something I've learned then, and has been a thread to choose my different jobs as well.
That's interesting. What you said, it's not what you do, but who you do it with. What would you say, in your experience, what has the impact of what has the idea of community? That idea, how has that impacted your career or your life or your work in the fashion industry?
So what do you mean by community?
Community, you said it's not necessarily what you do, but who you do it with. So thinking about people that you've worked with, or even maybe being around other like-minded people, how has this impacted your...
I see. So yeah, for me, it's true. It's less the community per se, but it's more the individual, as you just said. And it's because of industry. It's really small at the end of the day. Everybody knows everybody in some way, and so you meet people who are interesting, that are passionate, that talk about certain type of project, that want to create something, and you say, I want to be part of that. And all along my career, by opportunity, chance, serendipity, I met those people, and I say, okay, I want to be part of this. So I would say there is no one job that I have done that if I didn't have that gut feeling that something interesting was there, that the people that were working there were working there not only because it was a job, but because there is It was passion driven. They wanted to change something. They want to create something. If I didn't have that feeling, I would not go to those companies. So it's been something really, really strong for me. The best example I have, it's when I went to work for Studio MTX, which is MTX. It's a studio that belongs to Atelier Montex that does embroideries for the high fashion, and they have that studio on the side that it's more like an experimental studio that use the techniques of embroideries but apply to architectural design. So the customers are not the same. The size of the products are not the same because, embroidery is really small, really detailed. So imagine you do that on a size of a room in volume. So it was really interesting. And I had the opportunity to meet somebody that used to work there and was leaving the company. And she told me, okay, I think this position could be interesting for you. Why don't you talk to them? And I met with the designer, and I love the approach they were thinking, and it was super unique. So I stayed with them, and that same designer was later on headhunted by another company, and he became the head designer for Orient Express, so the luxury train. So for embroidery, now we are going to work for a luxury train. So again, another project that's super interesting, really new, how to rebrand a legend of the of the world, and say, yeah, I want to be part of that. So you see, one person led me to two type of jobs that really different, but the common links was the passion and his vision about every project.
Wow. And so thinking about some of these different experiences, so MTX, Orient Express, I believe you've also worked at Bon Marché. What have been maybe your biggest personal challenges that you've had to confront and overcome during your time working professionally in the fashion world?
A lot of different challenges. Let's see if I can try to pinpoint a few of them. I would say the first one was leaving the IFM to enter the job market. That transition was really, really hard for me because as a student, you're not prepared to enter the job market. They give you a lot of knowledge. They help you with the resume, a little bit of networking, few advice here and there. But mentally, it's really hard to discover that you're not protected. You're not in a cocoon anymore. And you start applying, you did great studies, you have a good experience, and you discover that nobody's waiting for you. There is no doors that's going to be open for you. You're just one person that's graduate, and now it's up to you to do the rest. And I think I was not at all prepared for that, and to kind of face that moment, the reality of making a living like that. And so I had to start working as a salesperson. I had to work in retail. And in our world, retail, let's say, is the entry level for anybody. But in my case, because you did a master degree, you expect to start directly near to the studio or as a product development person or retail manager. You imagine something bigger, not that the same entrance than everybody else. So that moment, it was really a lesson of humility for me. And it forced me to be really resilient and to say, okay, I have to start here. Doesn't matter because I have to make a living. How can you use that experience to leverage the next one? It was not easy to kind of find to make the transition, but I think that's the first challenge, reality check. The second challenge, I would say, was when you start going to where you want to be, maybe more like an office job with different type of teams and things like that. The imposter syndrome was really, really strong because you see people with a lot of experience. You're not used to the different processes and things like that. You always doubt yourself. And because of before that, you have been an intern. The first time you actually have to do the job yourself, but there is no safeguard. Yes, you have a boss, but now it's you who does the job. It's you who have to manage the intern in some way. So there is a lot of imposter syndrome there. And it's what I call it's going from the student mindset to the professional mindset. So I had to come up with strategies to say, okay, who is that professional? Who do I want to become? And it's the notion of future self also. Act as the future self, your future self. So what does it mean to be a professional? What kind of strategic mindset do you have? What kind of skills do you want to have? How do you express yourself? How do you hold yourself with others? So that was a huge challenge for me. And the third one, I would say it's trusting yourself to do stuff that you've never done before. So it's a little bit like an imposter syndrome, but it's the fact that because the professional choices I've made, every time I had a job that was different from the previous one. So every time you have to readapt yourself and use things that you have learned in your previous job to help you to gain the knowledge to do the next job, because they don't look the same. They have some commonalities, but we don't ask you the same. So every time you have to readapt about what are the KPIs, what it's expecting from you, how to be performant really fast, how do you recreate your let's say your network inside the company to know what's happening, because every time I've changed company, not only jobs, I changed companies as well. So that was also a challenge to adapt all the time and still be performant. So yeah, those are the three main ones that come to mind.
Yeah, I remember because I mean, at least we're the same age, and when I was graduating from university, I remember everyone was saying it was really difficult to get a job, and during the crisis, and everybody who was looking for a job, they would have to settle for a job that was outside of what they studied just to be able to make money. And I remember this was very difficult, and so it's something that I was very thankful for in my university was that one of our teachers said, I think 80% of you will graduate and you will not end up working in your industry. And everybody was shocked. But I was really happy that teacher said that to us, just because it was so liberating at the same time. And we knew, like, okay, it's okay if we don't end up exactly where we think we're going to, but there are different ways to get to where we want to go. And so that's why I thought that story was interesting. And then you also spoke about imposter syndrome and this idea of having to adapt and readapt. And it was a new company every single time. And it sounds to me that that's also part of becoming a professional. You just being a professional and having all that experience is also learning how to just keep doing new things over and over again, and realizing that, yeah, it's always going to be new. It's always going to be different. I want to go back a little bit to you. What are some of the things that you've learned from starting in new companies every single time? You mentioned a few of them, but what are maybe some tips or some kind of wisdoms that you've taken from that experience?
Yeah, just double clicking on what you just said to readapt, and then that goes with the question. I think it's that notion of certainty and safety. We want to feel safe in our job. We want to be certain of what we do or what it's expecting from us, because it's comfortable. You have a autopilot and you know what to do. But because you had changed companies and you change jobs, you don't really feel that. So you had to become comfortable with the uncomfortable, and from there, but you learn about resilience, of course, how to trust yourself. You say, okay, what are the things I can leverage? So every time, I think that was the number one thing, is like, on what can I use that I've acquired, that I know I'm good at, that's going to help me to, build my skills for this new position. For example, the number one thing I always do when I arrive to a new company, is to go and have meetings with people. And what I do is like, okay, I look at what is my job, what is let's say what is my job, and who are the people who are going to provide with information. So who are the people, let's say, above me, on the side, let's say, that provide information, and where that information is going to go after me. So I look on both sides. So an example would be like, okay, I work with, let's say, the product development team. I'm going to go talk to the product development. And beyond that, I'm going to talk to the designers directly. And after me, I'm going to talk to the retail merchandising, or the retail, or the salesperson, or the communication team. So no matter where you are in the job, look for where the information come from and where it goes. Because like that, we go back to the language of creation. You understand where the information come from, how they think about that information, what are their needs, why they provide you that information in that specific way, and you understand the one to whom you're going to give the information. You understand the needs, what they want, what they expect from you, and what is the best way to transmit that information, keeping in mind, of course, that you have your own objectives and things like that. But let's say you use your empathy to understand the flow of information. I do the exact same thing about power. Who are the people above me and who are the people below me? And it's the same thing. This one is not about information. It's about who's taking the information, the decisions, and what do they want, how they want things, what do they like. Like that, you adapt as well, and you are able to work with them in a better way. And below you, you understand what are the people that work for you, what do they want, what is the preferences in terms of management, what are the doubts, their weaknesses. So you have that overview, you do that audit of your environment between information and power. That's the first thing I do. The second thing I do, it's let's say you have 90 days, 4 months to kind of prove yourself. At least in France, your trial period is 4 months. So you say, okay, what are the KPIs that I need to fulfill to be able, to be sure that I stay on the job? And you focus on those big rocks, those big themes. For example, when I was at the Bon Marché, was okay, I need to know what's happening in Fashion Week, prepare that moment, know what are the designers, what kind of showrooms I want to go see with the buyers, what are the brands that we have in terms of partnerships that I need to contact to. I need to as well understand because I used to work with the communication team about some catalogs. How do we do that? At what time? And you start do your retro planning in terms of what are the big rocks. And so you are really clear about the things you're going to focus on to be sure that you learn those the fastest. And at the same time, you are very clear about the things that you're going to not be so good at least at the beginning. And you're okay with it. And you know that your boss is going to say, you're not really good at that. But because you anticipate it, because you did it on purpose, it doesn't hurt you when you feel it. You just know about it. And you know that 100% of your energy is there. But because those are the big rocks, that's what really matters. Like that, you have a good base right away. Everybody knows you. You know everybody. You understand how they work. You understand what is important in the job. And you know that you create your own, let's say, how do you say that? How to improve during improvement plan, let's say. You say, okay, I know I'm going to have to improve on that, but I'm going to keep that for let's say, the next 6 months. So those are the, let's say, 3 things I always do in any type of company. And it's been really successful because that's one of the things that people said, that I integrate and adapt really fast in any company. And because everybody knows you, your boss receive a lot of feedback from a lot of people. So they say, oh, perfect. Everybody knows him. He's already like rolling in the job. But yeah, great. We're going to keep it.
Wow, yeah, it looks like you really approach starting a new job or entering into a new company or a new institution or community, even it could work, with a strategic mindset and with this kind of high level understanding of the company ecosystem, which is very interesting. Going in there and it sounds like the first part is about relationships, but also that information flow that you talked about, and then the second part that you talked about was looking at your deliverables, those big rocks, what your goals are, your objectives. That's really fantastic. And so you've talked a little bit about kind of what happens, like say, even operationally, strategically, when you first go into a company. But looking at a young person who's just starting their career, and or if a young person just has a dream, what advice would you give them, or what would you like to say to them?
If it is in the fashion industry, but I think it's probably relevant for any industry, is to have a clear goal and to have a plan. And it doesn't matter if the goal is exactly what you want to do, is because when you have a plan, it gives you a direction, it gives you like steps to give you milestones. So it gives you momentum. You know where you're going. And along the way, you might change plan, but because you keep the momentum, you're able to adapt, leverage. And so I think that's the first thing. Most of people and students I coach, they don't know what they want to do. So they get stuck because they want to be sure of where they want to go before acting. And it's the opposite, because a career, you create a career by movement. You don't create a career by imagining the different milestones, because life happen, things happen, and it's never exactly what you want. So what matters is like to be in movement. So first, a plan and an action plan. The second thing is do your homeworks. So those homework, it's about exactly what we talked earlier: knowing the industry, understanding what's happening. You know, those big themes. What are the companies? What are the people working in it? What the different jobs entails. Even though you don't want to work, let's say, in retail, it's important to understand what's happening as a retail person. Or if you don't want to work in finance, understand what they do, just to have that overview of things. So I think it's have that base of knowledge of work, position, and industry information. The other thing that I would say, the number 3, is the network. So that's probably long term, that's the number 1 investment you can do when you are young, is really invest in that network. And at the same time, it's exactly like a personal finance. It's compound interest. The earlier you do, the better it's going to be. And most of us, especially when we are young, we are shy. We don't want to bother people. We don't have a network, so it takes time. We are scared. But that's the number 1 thing that become really important with time. And again, the network, let's say, advice, it's go meet people, but with generosity. Don't look for people because they're going to do something for you. Go look for people because you want to learn about them, not about their position, but who they are, what they have learned, what they have experienced, what they have overcome. And because of that, people are going to give you some advice or maybe connect you with somebody else. So the networking part, it's really, really important. And the other one, it's more like the mindset. It's going to be hard. It's a really competitive industry. there is like official path, and there is like, other path. Sometimes we cannot go through the door. We have to go through the basement, through the window, to the chimney, asking somebody to help us. So there is no one way to get to where you want to go. And knowing that, having that mindset, it's really important, because especially when you are young, you are used to the school system. When you graduate from one year to the next year, you have your grades, everything is set up. And companies feel that is the same. You have the entry-level job, then you have this and you have that. But in reality, it's never like that. You don't deserve anything. The number one advice I give is like, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. And so that means you can get to a position because you were better at negotiating it, because you talked to the person, because people saw who you are. And it could, at the same position, at the same place, somebody else could be there for longer than you. They pay their dues, but they won't have the job, unfortunately. And you could be that person. You could be in one place expecting a position and you never get it, and somebody else get it for different reasons. So you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. So that's let's say, the other piece of advice in terms of mindset I will give.
Yeah, those are all great mindsets. I like what you said about the networking. Go there and to learn from them. I would say, at least from my experience as well, is also go ready to offer something. Don't, because you always, of course, you're networking because you want something from somebody, but if you can be creative and find something that you can offer them, then that's just the way humans are. They'll want to offer you something too, or maybe not, but I think that's just the way humans are. We have this exchange kind of mindset going.
It's true, especially when you are young. One of the things that we don't think about is because when you are a professional and you have been in the game for so long, you don't learn as much, and you're not exposed to as many things. So when you are in school or in college, but you have all the updated knowledge. So it could be a book, a video, an interview, an article, a brand, anything that some maybe a professional don't know, but for the student or for the graduate, it's something just part of their life and who they are, could be interesting. And it shows that you have done your homework. Say, okay, you are in this position, you do this type of job. Here, one or two information that I think could be relevant for you. It already shows a lot about what type of professional you are. And as you say, it creates that reciprocity mindset from the professional, and say, okay, I'm going to keep an eye on him, or I'm going to give him some tips, or I like that way of thinking, so I'm going to recommend him to somebody.
Great. And so for just coming up here at the end here, I've got a few rapid fire questions we can try out here.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I've got, all right, you ready?
Let's try.
Okay. All right, first one. Do you have to go to school to make your dreams come true?
No, you don't. You can go from anywhere. If you're able to leverage what you have done, you're able to make it.
Cool. And what book has changed your life?
I think on the top of my head, it's the Ryan Holiday one. Ego is the enemy, and then obstacle is the way. And later, stillness is the key. Those three are all together. But obstacle is the way. It's probably the number one. Because I think I read it at a specific moment in my life when I needed to hear that, and it made me discover Stoicism philosophy, that from there becomes something like really important for me, because it encapsulates a lot of my values and who I want to be as a person or as a professional. And because when I was a kid, I was passionate about Greek mythology, and Stoicism come from the Greeks. It was like a circle for me that, it helped me when I was a kid. The same philosophy, or at least universe, helped me when I was an adult. So I would say that one.
It's incredible. It is full circle. All right. And the next one, one habit that has changed your life for the better?
I would say probably waking up early, because that's a family habit, and I'm a morning person. I love the energy in the morning. I love that time that you have for yourself in the morning, and yeah, it's like if you're able to do something for yourself in the morning, exercise, reading, or just speaking with somebody, you already won your day, and that's what I love. You cannot have a bad day, let's say, because you already have that for you.
And what's one thing that you're thankful for?
I'm thankful for really the life I have, because it's a life full of love, full of beautiful relationships, adventures, yeah, challenging moments. But that's what make the spices of life. So yeah, I would say life in general. I'm thankful for that. I will not change anything, and I don't regret a lot in my life.
And the last question, if you had to get a tattoo of words to remember, what would that tattoo say?
Oh, that's a tough one. Of course, I can go back to the obstacle is the way, because Ryan Holiday has that as a tattoo. Let's see. I would say, okay, I'm gonna say the theme of my year. So done and fun. I don't know if it would be a permanent tattoo, but is the tattoo that should be on my body this year. Because I'm launching this new project, the podcast, the career and coaching business. It's been really hard to not focus only on the results. And something that had helped me is that shifting that mindset, done and fun. So I need to finish things that I start, but at the same time, I have to have fun with it. So now what I look, it's like, okay, how can I have fun, and how can I finish that, in the most efficient way? So it would be the tattoo of the year to remind me that more often, and I think it's a good one for even for the rest of my life. So I would say that.
Cool. Great. Well, I like done and fun. I also use it. So it does help you get to the essentials sometimes and just remember, it's not such a big deal. Let's just get this done and move on. Have fun.
It's true. It's true.
Cool. Well, thank you, Lucas, for this insightful conversation. Yeah, I wish you the best with all of your projects, and I'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Lala. It was a lot of fun to be on the other side of the mic, and yeah, thanks for making me think again about those trajectory and all those insightful questions, and for playing along with this podcast project. So thank you a lot for your time and for your support.
Thank you. And where can you tell our listeners where they can find you online or?
Yeah, so the project is Fashion Career Lab, and so you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, under Fashion Career Lab _Paris, and on LinkedIn under Fashion Career Lab, or my name, Lucas Silva Edwards.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Lucas. Take care.
Thank you, Lala. See you soon. I don't know if you felt it, but I had a lot of fun doing this interview with Lala Drona. I have to admit, I was a little bit nervous at first. In those moments, you feel more vulnerable and want to show your better side. But I did my best to open up and be as real as possible in all my answers. So what are the key learnings? One, I would say the tip about what to do when you arrive in a new company. You look for the information flow and meet every person who provides you with information and the ones you give information to. Number two, remember that imposter syndrome will always be there when you start something new.
However, leveraging everything you have acquired so far and acknowledging the learning curve will help you regulate your stress and your negative self-talk. Number 3, keep in mind that sometimes it's not what you do, but with whom you do it that matters. When you will be looking for your next professional challenge, forget the job title for a moment and use this idea to see if new opportunities come up. If you are still hearing this, thank you so much for tuning in. I know how much your time is valuable. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. This is the most efficient way to help us grow and entices people to listen to the show. If you have any questions, comments, or requests, please feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. In the next couple of weeks, I will experiment with a different type of format before launching season 2. So please let me know what you think in the comment section. Until next time, I wish you a wonderful day.